Speed across any body of water is impressive, but in the world of outboard drag boat racing, it lasts just a quarter mile, and in many series, it's box stock all the way to exotic. Throw in a little nitrous, and man, let's go racing. Coming up next on the only network for speed on the water, it's the nail-biting, ear-splitting roar of the outboard drag boat racing. Perhaps the only thing like it in the world is to sit on the deck of an aircraft carrier as an F-18 takes to flight. So get set for the liquid quarter mile, only here on Speed Vision. When you think of drag racing, you normally think of cars. But not this weekend, as APBA's Competition Offshore presents coverage of the 2000 Outboard Drag Boat Association Series. Hello everyone, I'm Ian Howard and welcome to Adel, Georgia for the Reed Bingham Challenge. Well, the South has a definite affection for drag boat racing, and here the outboard drags will be here this weekend. As that tradition continues, more than 70 competitors vying to see who will be the fastest in the liquid quarter mile. Now, besides that, some great action all across the board. Everything from the bare bones super stocks all the way up to the nitrous-fueled unlimited. So it should be a great round of action. Also, world speed records will all be on the table, a chance for them to be broken as Adel, Georgia gets set to host the Reed Bingham Challenge. Adel, Georgia. It's a 3-hour drive south of the hustle and bustle of Atlanta. Located off Interstate 75 and situated in the beautiful Reed Bingham State Park, it's far removed from the fast pace of city life. And as it has for the past 4 years, this sleepy little town with its alligator warning signs has seen the competitors tear up the water in the quest for the fastest liquid quarter mile. While outboard drag boat racing is not new to the South, the Outboard Drag Boat Association, or as it's more commonly known as the ODBA, is a unification of the three main groups: Tennessee Drag Boat Association, the Deep South Racing Association, and the Alabama Drag Boat Association. In addition, ODBA provides for 8 separate classes, from the box stock lake racer to the Fury of the Unlimited class. Also new for 2000 is the addition of 2 key partners, Blue Marble Oil and Mercury Racing. For Todd Harper of Blue Marble Oil, ODBA is the perfect testbed for its line of premium lubrication products for 2-cycle engines.
We think it's a tremendous match because what it does is it allows us to prove our product to some race engines, to a race crowd, under very extenuating circumstances. These motors are running 10,500, 11,000 RPMs. They're getting up to 120 miles an hour out there on that lake, and there is just no letting up on the oil, and we think it's a perfect place to prove our product.
Mercury Racing, long a name associated with powerboat competition, is continuing its long-standing tradition of providing on-site support for the racers.
Mercury Racing is the corporate sponsor of the ODBA. We are here on site as a product support for anybody who runs Mercury outboards. We help anybody who needs assistance and offer parts, accessories, and advice.
And when we come back to Adel, Georgia for round 1 of the 2000 ODBA series presented by Blue Marble Oil, we've got the action from the Lake Racer and Super Stock classes. So stay tuned for more of the liquid quarter mile right here on Speed Vision. Coverage of the 2000 Reed Bingham Challenge from Adel, Georgia has been made possible by Blue Marble, premium 2-cycle lubricants, by Mercury Racing, where the race never stops, and by Budweiser, the king of beers. Welcome back as Blue Marble Oil presents coverage of race number 1 of the 2000 ODBA series, the Reed Bingham Challenge from Adel, Georgia. Here's the racing format: double elimination quarter-mile drags with all the racers running 2 rounds of competition. Overall winners are determined by a combination of points from those 2 rounds. And also ODBA speed record runs are also up for grabs here at Reed Bingham State Park. And the first class of boats out to run the liquid quarter mile in the double elimination format are the Lake Racers. These are bass or open cockpit boats with modified V6 or V8 outboards running on racing gasoline weighing between 1,650 and 2,100 pounds. You can expect to see these boats run in the 100-mile-per-hour range. And here's your Lake Racer lineup. 8 boats in all, led by Glenn Reynolds, the 1999 national champion and current quarter-mile straightaway record holder. And in round 1, Glenn Reynolds would be matched up against Chuck Martini, and Reynolds in lane number 1 from Kingston, Tennessee, would be upset as Martini in lane 2, a Pearland, Texas resident, would nudge him out at the finish line at more than 100 miles per hour in the liquid quarter mile as they opened up ODBA action from Adel, Georgia. Reynolds, after the loss, would move to the loser's bracket in this double elimination challenge and face Steve Dunlap, who is in lane number 1. And Reynolds would take him out as he ran the liquid quarter mile once again at more than 100 miles per hour aboard his Allison Mercury-powered entry. And for Glenn Reynolds, that would atone for his round 1 loss to Chuck Martini. Next up for Reynolds, A.C. Stringfield of Houston, Texas in lane 2. Reynolds in lane 1, powered by his Allison Super Sport 2000, would again be the quickest in the quarter mile as he knocked off Stringfield, making it 2 wins in 3 races, and that would inch him closer to a final rematch against Chuck Martini. Charles Jordan would be in lane 2 against Reynolds, with the winner set to face Chuck Martini in the final in this loser's bracket showdown. And Reynolds would make it 4 in a row and claw his way all the way back for a showdown against Chuck Martini and try to atone for his round 1 defeat in this Lake Racer class. So Reynolds in lane 1, Martini lane 2. Reynolds with a loss, Martini no losses, so Reynolds needs a win to stave off elimination. It's Allison Mercury power versus Triad Evinrude power, and Glenn Reynolds would time the start and never look back as he defeated Martini, setting up a 1-race winner-take-all showdown in this very competitive Lake Racer class. And now the Lake Racer final. Reynolds with 5 consecutive wins since losing his opener to the man in lane 1. That's Chuck Martini. This is for all the marbles, both with a loss, and it's a good start. Martini lane 1 hops out of the box first, and it will be Chuck Martini of Pearland, Texas, who's going to take Glenn Reynolds here in the final and take the round 1 victory for the Lake Racers. And now a look at the Lake Racers scorecard. Chuck Martini holds off Glenn Reynolds for the round 1 title, with Jordan Hall and Stringfield rounding out the top 5. Another class of boats competing in Adel, Georgia are the Super Stocks, probably the most competitive class out here. Class rules are very specific. They are limited to stock high performance or slightly modified standard production motors on any production hull. All entrants must use racing gasoline and weigh 1,400 pounds. You can expect to see these guys running at about 100 to 105 miles per hour. In the round 1 lineup for the Super Stocks, led by 10 very tough competitors, Paul Freeman, Alan Trantham, 2 veteran Super Stock racers. Expect them at the head of the class. And in round 1, Alan Trantham was hot. Trantham from Waynesville, North Carolina, put away Clanton, Alabama's Chris Craig, who was in lane number 1 with a win aboard his Allison Mercury-powered entry at more than 100 miles per hour through the liquid quarter mile as the Super Stocks opened up here from Adel, Georgia. Same round, and this time the Mirage Van Gogh of Van Honeycutt, who was in lane 2, was no match for Alan Trantham as he again streaked to victory. So that made it 2 in a row for Trantham as he had only one thing on his mind, and that was reaching the Super Stock final. So Trantham would almost assuredly have a spot in the final, but against 2, a great first-round battle pitted ODBA Vice President Paul Freeman in lane 2 against Stuart DeBose in lane number 1. And it would be Freeman, an 11-year racing veteran, who would win and send Stuart DeBose to the loser's bracket. So after that close victory against Stuart DeBose, Paul Freeman then would match wits against C.J. Davis of Galleon, Alabama. And Freeman in lane 2 would run away with this one, powered by his Triad Mercury entry. He would again come out on top, defeating Davis's Allison and knocking Davis out of this double elimination competition. A round 1 showdown was imminent between Paul Freeman and Alan Trantham, neither with a loss, and Freeman in lane 2, Trantham near to your screen in lane 1 would be side by side down the straightaway, and in the end Alan Trantham would remain perfect. He would knock off Freeman and send him to the loser's bracket and earn a trip to the final here in the Super Stocks. So who would face Trantham? In the losers bracket final, Stuart DeBose in lane 1 had knocked off 4 very good boats to get to Freeman, and DeBose would get the whole shot, take a slight lead, and never look back, earning himself a trip to the final and knocking off ODBA Vice President Paul Freeman. He knocked him right out of competition with his second loss. So the stage is set for the Superstock final. Stuart DeBose near your screen in lane 1, and Alan Trantham undefeated in this double elimination round in lane 2, both with Allison's powered by Mercury's, very similar all-around boats. It's a great start, both out together, and Trantham lane 2 a little bit more mid-range speed, and Alan Trantham will take home the round 1 victory in this Superstock final.
It's one of the toughest fields I've come through to never lose a round. I've usually sometimes lose a round, sometimes I can come through without losing a round, but today it was all the way through, no rounds lost. I got to thank Burley Mears. He's my boat owner. He's pretty much funding this operation. Without him, I couldn't be here, so I really credit him.
So as we get a look at the scorecard for the Superstocks, Alan Trantham is the round 1 victor, going undefeated. Stuart DeBose is second, with Paul Freeman finishing up third out of the top 5. And when we come back to Adel, Georgia for round 1 of the 2000 ODBA series presented by Blue Marble Oil, we've got the action from the modified production carburetor and also the modified production classes. So stay tuned for more of the liquid quarter mile right here on Speed Vision. Welcome back as Blue Marble Oil presents coverage of race number 1 of the 2000 ODBA series, the Reed Bigham Challenge from Adel, Georgia. Next out to try their hand at the liquid quarter mile is the modified production carburetor class. These are modified race gas powered motors using carburetors only. Weight depends on cubic inches and components used, typically from 1,250 to 1,600 pounds. All types of motors and boats are represented with speeds in the 105-mile-per-hour range. This is an 8-boat lineup, again double elimination, 2 rounds of racing with the best overall results determining a winner in this modified production carburetor class, led by a veteran, Bobby Warren from Tullahoma, Tennessee. And in round 1, David Hardin in lane 2 would face off against the man who would have to be considered the favorite, Bobby Warren, who's in lane number 1. And Warren's Mirage Mariner powered edition would cover the quarter mile the quickest, winning it with a speed of 103.33 miles per hour. So Hardin now in the losers bracket. He would face off against Eric Futrell of Virginia Beach, Virginia. Hardin in lane number 2 would knock off Futrell with a quarter mile speed of 96.6 miles per hour, but he would have to crank out some more horses if he wanted any chance against the likes of Bobby Warren. Hardin would be back again and coming off 2 more consecutive wins against M.J. Curvin, then R.J. Wanska. Hardin in lane number 1 would not have an answer for the Allison Mercury combo of Bruce Tripp in this losers bracket final. So Hardin would be knocked out with his second loss as Tripp moved on to face Warren in the modified production carburetor final. So the main event now for the modified production carburetor class, the round 1 final, and Bruce Tripp in lane 1 up against Bobby Warren in lane number 2. Warren undefeated through this round, and again Bobby Warren off to a great start. It's neck and neck, and just too tough in the end for the competition. The Mirage Mariner combination is the right match for this modified production carburetor class, and Warren is the round 1 champ, going undefeated through this round of competition.
This boat that I'm driving was a winner last year. It won the championship last year, so it's the boat with the X on the back that they're all shooting for.
A look at the scorecard, a perfect round for Warren. That puts him on top. Tripp was second with Hardin, Wanska, and Curvin, third, fourth, and fifth in round 1 for the modified production carburetor class. Now it's time for the modified production class. This is the most popular class in the Outboard Drag Boat Association. These are gasoline-powered drag boats weighing in at 1,350 to 1,450 pounds. Basically a factory class with modifications allowed only to the factory parts. The Merc 350 HP drag motor is the most popular engine of choice unless you ask Randy McCormick, and they can run in the 110-mile-per-hour range. Round 1 action, Randy McCormick would be tested right off the bat. Could his Yamaha match up against Paul Sweet's Mercury? This would be the first real test for McCormick after a banner 1999 season. But Randy aboard his Mirage Yamaha powered edition would knock off Paul Sweet, recording an opening speed of 108.53 miles per hour. Jerry Pettifer was next. McCormick, a 10-year drag racing veteran from Hillsborough, Tennessee, would again show that 1999 APBA Hall of Champion form as he bested Pettifer to make it 2 in a row and giving Yamaha 2 wins against the Mercuries of Sweet and Pettifer. So with wins over Sweet and Pettifer, Jack Barsh would be next. And once again, the 1999 High Point and National Champion would earn victory. This time he would have a run of 106 miles per hour, an inch closer to the final. Not an easy task when everyone expects you to win. But would the McCormick train continue to roll? Sir Walter Wolf of Madison, Mississippi in lane 1 would try his hand, but again it would be the Mirage Yamaha combination of Randy McCormick in lane 2 that would be the answer, as McCormick would sweep his way to the modified production final, defeating Wolf's Allison Mercury combination. So who would come out of the losers bracket to face McCormick? Lynn Griffith Jr. and Sir Walter Wolf would face off once again as they weave their way through this very tough 16-boat field. Wolf had handed Griffith Jr. his only loss earlier, and Wolf aboard his Allison Mercury-powered edition would outdo the Triad Mercury-powered edition of Griffith Jr. once again. So the modified production final pits the undefeated Randy McCormick against Walter Wolf. Wolf had to battle out of the losers bracket to get here as both boats take the green light and McCormick to the lead, and it will be Randy McCormick who holds on and takes the round 1 victory as he goes undefeated in this modified production class.
Yeah, we come down here, wasn't running, we didn't think it was good enough to win this race, but we worked on it all last week and again last night, and we finally got, I guess, good enough to win here today. I hope we can do it again tomorrow.
So here's your top 5 finishers. Randy McCormick, a clean sweep, followed by Walter Wolf. Then you have Lynn Griffith Jr. with Skinner and Leslie rounding out this modified production class for round number 1. And when we come back to Adel, Georgia for round number 1 of the 2000 ODBA series presented by Blue Marble Oil, we've got all the action from the Pro Gas class, so stay tuned for more of the Liquid Quarter Mile right here on Speed Vision. Welcome back as Blue Marble Oil presents coverage of race number 1 of the 2000 ODBA series, the Reed Bingham Challenge from Adel, Georgia. We now move up in terms of speed to a class that many thought would not be here today, the Pro Gas class. Declining numbers threatened to put this class out of business just a couple of years ago. You see the class specs there, heavily modified motors with many aftermarket parts, limited only to race gasoline, and 1,400 pounds in weight minimum. This is a great class for creative motor builders, and that's the big reason why this class has rebounded, as you can expect to see speeds in the 115 mile per hour range. The Pro Gas lineup features some great veteran racers. Philip Hollis, for one, has been very instrumental in this class's well-being, along with Ron Hausman. These two have literally kept this class alive the last few years. And in round 1, Ryan Hudson of Lake City, Florida would be matched up against 1999 APBA Pro Gas High Points runner-up Jeff Ingram from Southside, Alabama, which is about 50 miles outside of Birmingham. And Ingram, aboard his Triad Mercury-powered entry, would put Hudson away and advance, notching his first win of the day. Next up for Ingram in lane number 2 would be John Lenskow in lane number 1 of Independence, Iowa. Lenskow in that beautifully designed and painted Triad Mercury combination would be side by side with Ingram, the second-year Pro Gas driver, but Ingram once again would prevail by the slightest of margins and pick up his second win. The onboard camera replay aboard Lenskow's Triad shows how much acceleration the outboard Mercury motors provide as Lenskow goes through the quarter-mile trap at more than 106 miles per hour, spinning upwards of 9,500 RPM. With a pair of wins under his belt, Jeff Ingram would this time face off against Philip Hollis of Evadale, Texas. And Hollis, one of the most liked and respected competitors out here, would also come up a bit short in his number 51 Skunk Works entry, but Ingram again was the victor, giving him 3 wins in a row. What comprises a Pro Gas drag boat? Well, for the inside scoop, here's this edition of APBA Competition Offshores in the Cockpit, presented by Blue Marble Oil, the premium 2-cycle lubricant. The Pro Gas class was a class that was almost on the verge of extinction a couple of years ago. They have seen their numbers go from 4 to more than 20 boats here in the year 2000. One of the guys behind the flourish in this Pro Gas class has been Philip Hollis, who's to the left of me. Philip, tell me about the Pro Gas class.
The Pro Gas class is a highly modified V6 configuration outboard drag class. There's no limit on cubic inches. It just has to be a V6. A lot of custom-built parts, and we're limited only by our fuel and our weight. The boat has to weigh 1,400 pounds, and it has to run tech fuel. In other words, you have to buy the fuel at the race site, and it has. You come out of the water, the minute you come out of the water, and that's really the only limitations on the class. And I believe that people like the class on account of that limitation. Methanol and nitromethane kill these engines really quick, but a lot of people like to build the engines, custom build them, and so this class is perfect for that. It's an engine builder's class and a tuning man's class, and I think that's why people like it.
Well, with guys like Philip Hollis involved, look for the Pro Gas class to continue to flourish in the year 2000. And after that, in the cockpit with Philip Hollis, we come back to the losers bracket final that matched John Lenskow and Philip Hollis, both of whom had lost to Jeff Ingram earlier. And this time, Hollis would find victory as he powered his 1,400-pound Mercury V6 drag motor to victory and would face Jeff Ingram once again. And as we see the onboard replay from John Lenskow's boat from his run against Philip Hollis, it's hard not to notice the acceleration. Many of these boats have automatic pre-programmed trim systems, so it's hit the throttle and steer straight and hope that you end up in the winner's circle. And now the Pro Gas final, Hollis versus Ingram. Ingram a clean sweep to reach this point. Hollis had to claw his way here, so Ingram has the trump card in this double elimination challenge. He doesn't have a loss. And it's a clean start, both running the Triad Hull Mercury outboard power combination, and Jeff Ingram with the advantage, and the 35-year-old defending Deep South Racing Association Pro Gas champion will do it. He completes the clean sweep here in round number 1.
We did real well. Daryl and me, we worked on the boat real hard this week and spent a lot of time on the lake trying to get our compression up to run with Mercury's new single ring piston. And the single ring piston just came through for us today and just increased in power as the day progressed. The more the engine got broke in, the more power we gained, the more RPM. So it just turned out to be a real good afternoon for us.
A look at the Pro Gas scorecard now. Ingram finished on top, a clean sweep, with veteran Philip Hollis second, John Lenskow was third. Neither of those two had an answer for Ingram. They both went up against him and lost. Then you have Houseman fourth with Hudson in fifth place. And when we come back to Adel, Georgia for round number 1 of the 2000 ODBA series presented by Blue Marble Oil, we've got all the action from the big boys of outboard drag. The Pro Fuel and Unlimiteds all set to take to the water, so stay tuned for more of the liquid quarter mile right here on Speed Vision. Welcome back as Blue Marble Oil presents coverage of race number 1 of the 2000 ODBA series, the Reed Bigham Challenge from Adel, Georgia. The Pro Fuel class, these are boats weighing in at a minimum of 1,250 pounds, running either methanol or nitromethane. Lots of power produced by these true racing motors, and speeds can reach upwards of 120 miles per hour. They're called the thoroughbreds of the sport. Very fast and sometimes unruly. A large field in this Pro Fuel class, 9 boats in all, and some truly great drivers led by Kevin Mumford, Bobby Warren, and DeWitt DeWeese. A big first-round matchup right off the bat. DeWitt DeWeese versus Kevin Mumford. DeWeese in lane 1, Mumford lane 2. Mumford, a world speed record holder. DeWeese back in his boat for the first time since last October. And Mumford from Baxley, Georgia, would win it, sending DeWitt DeWeese the third to the loser's bracket. So DeWeese trying to rebound aboard his Triad Mercury combination as we go on board with DeWeese. Ron Houseman already with a loss to his credit after Gilbert Johnson knocked him off. And DeWeese would do the same, sending Houseman to the showers early with his second loss in as many races, and DeWeese would advance in the loser's bracket. So could DeWeese keep the ball rolling? This time James Clouser of Vanceboro, North Carolina would step up and try his luck. Clouser with a loss to Kevin Mumford already under his boat. As you get a driver's eye perspective of the course from DeWitt's boat, well, he would have the same luck against DeWeese, or lack of it, as DeWeese continued his rampage through the loser's bracket. So the momentum was with DeWeese as we're on board with DeWitt as he gets in line for the start, but he would need 2 consecutive wins over Kevin Mumford here in the final. And in that first race, Mumford undefeated at this point. Remember, he can lose 1 race, would not be able to answer to DeWeese, as DeWitt's Triad Mercury combo would prevail once again, forcing a 1-race showdown for the round 1 title. So DeWitt DeWeese with an improbable run through the loser's bracket. He has won 6 consecutive races, and he and Mumford have defeated each other once as we go on board with DeWitt, and both hungry for a Pro Fuel round 1 title. And DeWitt DeWeese will hold off Mumford and notch his 7th consecutive win, defeating Mumford back-to-back here in the final as he's crowned the round 1 champion.
Well, at first it wasn't running right. We've got a new EFI system, Motec, on the boat. And we're just now getting a handle on the tune, and it was a little goofy at first, and it straightened itself out, and we dialed on it a little bit and got it to run.
So as you look at the scorecard after round one, Deweese, a much-earned round one title. Mumford, Tough Luck was second. Puckett third, with Johnson and Warren fourth and fifth. And now to the Unlimiteds, the feature class in outboard drag. The name alone covers the rules. 1,250 pounds and 8 cylinders. Then almost anything goes. Nitrous oxide, methanol, superchargers, you name it, anything. And speeds can top out at the 130-mile-per-hour range. You can expect to see some broken parts along the way. The lineup for the Unlimiteds, 8 boats in all, led by world speed record holder David Carver of Bath, North Carolina. He'll be the guy to beat out here in the Unlimited class. In round one action, Chris Camelander of Beaumont, Texas would try his hand at the 1999 Unlimited High Points champion, but Carver, with just too much speed, would knock off Camelander as he ran the liquid quarter mile at 125 miles per hour, or in about 9+ seconds. So now the question would be, who would face David Carver, or who would want to? Marty Logan, with plenty of experience, 12 years in all in Unlimited racing, as well as a beautiful boat. The number 88 Nitro Fish entry would not only lose the race to Terry Smith, he would blow his motor and be left waiting for a tow rope. The replay shows Logan ready to open up the throttle. However, the motor stumbled, the nitrous fired, and Mr. Logan had a blown motor. And by Marty's reaction, a kind of, you gotta be kidding me kind of look on his face. Carver then would take on Matthew Caldwell of Ocean Springs, Mississippi. And Carver, who calls himself the Skywalker because he's got the force, would put Caldwell away as recorded a speed of 127 miles per hour, upping his prior run by 2 miles per hour. So Carver looking more and more like the man to beat in the Unlimited class. So with back-to-back wins, David Carver, a third-year Unlimited driver, would face Roe Yale of Bel Air, Texas. Roe short for Robert, a 5-time Deep South Racing Association champion, as well as a true pioneer of the sport of drag boat racing, couldn't summon up enough against Carver as he swept his way to the Unlimited final with a winning speed of 127 miles per hour. After all the excitement of Logan blowing his motor, the losers bracket final would pit Matthew Caldwell against Roe Yale, both with losses to David Carver, who patiently waits to face one of these two, and Caldwell, running the Triad Mercury combination, would be a step quicker than Yale and face Carver for the final. The main event, the heavyweights, the Unlimited set for their final. David Carver, a clean sweep, still can afford a loss in this double elimination round. He's in lane number 2. Caldwell has only lost to Carver earlier. He needs to beat him here to force a winner-take-all showdown, and it's going to be Carver running away with it. He takes home the Unlimited final here in round number 1.
We're trying pretty hard. Had a brand new engine, scattered the other one all over the lake here about a month ago, and didn't really know what it was going to do, but it brought us through. Had a pretty good day.
As we look at the scorecard for the Unlimiteds after round 1, a clean sweep for David Carver, just flat out faster than everyone else. Caldwell was second with Yale, Broussard, and Leach, third, fourth, and fifth. And when we come back to Adel, Georgia for round 1 of the 2000 ODBA series presented by Blue Marble Oil, we've got round 2 action from the Lake Racer and Superstock classes. So stay tuned for more of the Liquid Quarter Mile right here on Speed Vision. Welcome back as Blue Marble Oil presents coverage of race number 1 of the 2000 ODBA series, the Reed Bingham Challenge from Adel, Georgia. It's time for round number 2 now. Remember, these are double elimination rounds, and the best combined results from the 2 rounds determines an overall winner. The Lake Racers back for their second round. These closely resemble bass boats. Same 8 competitors out there, led by round 1 winner Chuck Martini. And Chuck Martini again would face off against nemesis Glenn Reynolds. Each would come into this race with 2 consecutive wins in this second round. But this time, Glenn Reynolds would get the upper hand as he defeated Chuck Martini in this budding rivalry in the Lake Racer class. So now with Martini in the losers bracket, it would be his turn to try to make his way back to the final as he faced Charles Jordan in this losers bracket final. Jordan with 4 wins and a loss in round number 2. Martini with 2 wins and a loss in the same round. So who would be going home? And Chuck Martini would not disappoint. The round 1 winner would beat Jordan and face Glenn Reynolds in the final. The second consecutive round they would do so. To the Lake Racer final, Martini trying to come out of the loser's bracket against Reynolds, who is 3-0 here in round number 2, so the roles have been reversed from their round 1 final. And it's a good start. Martini in that bass boat in lane number 1, and Reynolds in lane number 2, and Martini from Pearland, Texas, will knock Reynolds off, forcing a winner-take-all final, as well as an overall Reed Bingham Challenge champion that will come up next. So with the stakes all or nothing unless you like second place, Martini and Reynolds set to do battle once again. This is their 6th meeting of the weekend. Martini leads 3 wins to 2. However, whoever wins this one will be the overall champion, and both are off. And Glenn Reynolds, lane number 1, that Allison Hull Mercury power will knock off Martini's Triad Evinrude combination and take home top honors in the Lake Racer class. Here's the combined overall results for the Lake Racer class. Glenn Reynolds finished on top. Martini a close second, with Jordan, Stringfield, and Dunlap rounding out the top 5. Take some nitrous, throw in some wild colors, and what do you get? Well, for starters, you get the wildest looking team on the circuit. For an inside look, here's the APBA Competition Offshore Racer Profile, presented by Mercury Racing, where the racing never stops. For Marty Logan of the number 88 House of Color Nitro Fish race team, Unlimited Racing has been his choice from the very first time he ever competed.
You know, it's the fastest class. It's, you know, it's the biggest rush. It's once you run Unlimited, you really don't want to run anything any slower. And you know, it's just the one that we got started in and one we've hung with.
Competing in the Unlimited class means you're going up against the very best of the best in outboard drag boat racing.
There's a lot of fast boats. There's, I think there's 8 boats here today, and these are the fastest boats in the world as far as the outboard unlimited drag racing. These are the fastest ones in the world that race with ODBA, and if you beat these guys, you've done something.
Logan's high point to date was his win earlier this year at Mount Pleasant, Texas.
The funnest part was last weekend when we finally won one. We've been in it for a lot of years, and we've done a lot of, seconds and thirds, and we finally won one the last race in Mount Pleasant, Texas, and it was an incredible feeling.
And while his wife Debbie watches every race with nervous abate, Logan feels that preparation is his key to a successful season ahead.
Well, we're hoping to do better than we've ever done. We are preparing more than we ever have. Actually, we came down Friday, and normally Friday is a testing session for everybody, and we didn't even put the boat in the water Friday. We were ready to go, so that's a good sign.
Time now for the second round for the Super Stocks. 10 boats in this field for round number 2, led by Alan Trantham, who swept round number 1. And in round number 2, could Alan Trantham remain hot? Sometimes you hate to sit out when you're going so good, as Trantham was matched up against Darren Baxter of Prattville, Alabama. These two didn't meet in round number 1, and Trantham, looking as fit as he did in round 1, would pick up his 6th consecutive victory, knocking Baxter into the loser's bracket. Trantham this time would face John Fulton of Mobile, Alabama. Trantham beat him in round number 1 and probably his toughest heat, a virtual photo finish, but it wouldn't be quite as close this time, as Trantham with that Allison Mercury combo would notch his 7th consecutive win and 2nd here in round number 2. To the losers bracket final, Paul Freeman and Stuart DeBose would tee it up against one another. They faced each other twice in round number 1, each earning a win. However, DeBose's win came in the losers bracket final and advanced him to the final. But this time, Paul Freeman would turn the tables and knock DeBose out and head to the final against Alan Trantham. So an exciting round 2 of competition so far. Alan Trantham in lane number 2, Paul Freeman in lane number 1. This race, other than for bragging rights, will not affect the overall championship, as Trantham, even if he loses the final, will win it. And it's a good start. Freeman with his electronic trim system on board. He's using his 2nd prop after cracking his 1st prop. He's been successful in round number 2, but once again, Alan Trantham, he's going to go on to victory and take the overall Super Stock title for the weekend. Here's your top 5 overall Super Stock finishers for the weekend. Trantham on top, Mr. Perfect, 11 consecutive wins. He's your champion. Freeman was 2nd, DeBose 3rd. Those two really the story. They raced each other very strong all weekend long, with Fulton and Honeycutt 4th and 5th. And when we come back to Adel, Georgia for round number 1 of the 2000 ODBA Series presented by Blue Marble Oil, we've got round 2 action for Modified Production Carburetor and Modified Productions. So stay tuned for more of the Liquid Quarter Mile right here on Speed Vision. Welcome back as Blue Marble Oil presents coverage of race number 1 of the 2000 ODBA Series, the Reed Bingham Challenge from Adel, Georgia. The modified production carburetor class out for their second round, led by Bobby Warren, who took the round 1 title in this 8-boat class. And in round 2, Bobby Warren up against Bruce Tripp. This is a rematch of the round 1 final. These guys also faced each other in round 1 before the final, with Warren getting the upper hand both times. And Bobby Warren made it a trifecta as he out-sprinted Tripp through the quarter mile and would move on in his quest for an overall title. David Harden of Jackson, Tennessee would be next for Warren. These two faced each other in round 1 as well, with Warren knocking him into the loser's bracket, and Warren aboard his Mirage Mariner-powered entry would once again knock off Harden and send him to the loser's bracket and capture his second consecutive win here in round number 2. So a couple of Warren cast-offs up against each other here in round 2. David Harden, who just lost to Warren, and Bruce Tripp, who opened up this round with a loss to Warren, trying to earn a win here to eventually face Warren once again. These two faced each other in the loser's bracket final in round 1, with Tripp winning, and Bruce Tripp with that Allison Mercury 1-2 punch once again would get the best of David Harden and capture the victory. And in the loser's bracket final, Chris Little and Bruce Tripp would face each other for the first time this weekend. The Allison Mercury of Tripp against the Mirage Yamaha of Little, and the Allison Mercury would prevail, catapulting Tripp back to the final. The modified production carburetor final, Bobby Warren here on the heels of 3 straight wins, but he has had to sit for a while. Tripp back here to face Warren in this round 2 final after losing in round 1, and Warren again will not be denied as he hands Bruce Tripp his second consecutive loss in the finals and takes home the big picture, first overall. To the scorecard now, and Bobby Warren finished up first overall, so he's your champion. Bruce Tripp was second fiddle, with Harden, Little, and Wanska third, fourth, and fifth. Round 2 now for modified production. Randy McCormick, part of the 16-boat fleet, the largest out here this weekend. He swept round number 1, so he's got to be the favorite here in round number 2. And in early action, Greg Berry and Jimmy Johnston matched up. Berry from Panama City, Florida, and Johnston from Brookhaven, Mississippi. This is their first matchup of the weekend, and Greg Berry would take the victory and send Johnston to the loser's bracket early on. Bruce Tripp, the runner-up in modified production carburetor, out there against Greg Berry, the two both trying to avoid the loser's bracket, but Tripp would be relegated there as Berry would beat him, making it 2 in a row for Greg Berry. Now Berry would face the favorite, Randy McCormick, and Berry, who ran 8th in round number 1, then replaced his motor afterwards, and apparently it has paid off as he has worked an upset over Randy McCormick for his 3rd straight victory here in round number 2, and that sends McCormick to the loser's bracket. Time now for the modified production final. Jack Berry, a clean sweep in this round, a perfect 4-0 after finishing 8th in round 1. Remember, he even had to change motors for this round, and Dr. Walter Wolf, one loss that came to Berry earlier in this round, and as they surpass the century mark in speed, Greg Berry will win it. He's the round 2 champion.
I went back to the 3rd place setup for the Grand Nationals of last year. Changed props, changed power heads, and it sufficed through today.
A look now at the modified production scorecard. The overall results from round 1 and round 2 have Walter Wolf on top. He had 2 second-place finishes in the 2 rounds. Griffith Jr. was 2nd overall, with Randy McCormick 3rd, Skinner 4th, and Greg Berry a 5th-place finish. And when we come back to Adel, Georgia for round 1 of the 2000 ODBA Series presented by Blue Marble Oil, we'll have round 2 action from both the Pro Gas, Pro Fuel, and also the Unlimited classes. So stay with us for more of the Liquid Quarter Mile right here on Speed Vision. Welcome back as Blue Marble Oil presents coverage of race number 1 of the 2000 ODBA Series, the Reed Bingham Challenge from Adel, Georgia. Time now for the Pro Gas class to run their 2nd round. 6 boats back out there led by round 1 winner, Jeff Ingram. And a rematch of the loser's bracket final from round 1, Philip Hollis against John Lenskow. And this time, Lenskow would get a bit of revenge, sending Hollis to the loser's bracket. You can see the onboard replay from Lenskow's boat. This class only had 4 boats in it back in 1997, and last year it had become the 2nd largest in all the outboard drag category. So with the victory over Hollis, Lenskow would face off against round 1 champion Jeff Ingram. Ingram dealt him a defeat that last time out, but not again, as Lenskow, heating it up, would again win. This time he would run the quarter mile at 109 miles per hour. Onboard replay of the Lenskow Ingram heat, virtually deck to deck as the two 1,400-pound drag boats would easily pass the century mark in speed. To the losers bracket now, Ingram with 2 victories and no defeats against Hollis this weekend, and more importantly, a final victory in round 1 against them. So with all that on Hollis's mind, Ingram would make it 3 in a row and be back in familiar territory, the Pro Gas Final. So John Ingram of Southside Alabama and John Lenskow of Independence, Iowa in the final. Ingram with a loss, so he needs to win this to force a race showdown, as Lenskow is undefeated here in round number 2. And it's a good start, both out of the blocks. On board with Lenskow now. Look at that rooster tail coming off his Mercury outboard, and Lenskow will win it. He's the round 2 Pro Gas champion.
We got on the trim switch a little bit too hard on one run and blew the boat up, and finally got it back down, and John, being a competitor he is, went right past us. And then he beat me off the lights on the second run, and he took first today, but I had an overall first yesterday and second today, which gave me the overall win for the weekend.
A look at the Pro Gas overall results for round number 1 and round 2. Jeff Ingram, a first and a second overall. He's the champion. Lenskow, a first and a third. That was good for second overall, with Philip Hollis finishing up third. And now to the thoroughbreds, the Pro Fuel class, second round action. 9 boats in all, led by round 1 winner DeWitt DeWeese. Second round action now, Bobby Warren also running in the modified production carburetor class, where he finished first overall for the weekend, facing Gordon Montague of Port St. Lucie, Florida. And Montague, who lost both his races in round 1, including one to Warren, would extract some revenge and beat Warren here in the second round action. A great rematch from round 1 would pit champion DeWitt DeWeese against Kevin Mumford. DeWitt, after losing his first race in round 1 to Mumford, would count off 7 consecutive victories, including back-to-back in the final over Mumford for the round 1 title. But DeWeese wouldn't challenge in this one, as his boat broke down, giving Mumford the victory. To the Pro Fuel final, remember Gilbert Montague, who had the hot hand earlier? Well, he was 1-2 punched by these two, Kevin Mumford and then Key Puckett, in succession, ending any chance for a final. These two met in round 1 in a photo finish won by Mumford, and Mumford a bit quicker in this one, and he's the round 2 winner.
It's a very competitive sport. The boats are running so tight, you know, with a tenth of a second. They're that close, and it turned out good for us.
A look at the top 5 overall in Pro Fuel. Kevin Mumford first in round 2 and second in round 1. He's the overall champion. Puckett is second, Warren third, with DeWeese a first and a ninth, finishing 4th overall. And Hudson, he placed 5th. To the Unlimiteds now. 8 boats out there, led by David Carver, who swept his way through round number 1. And Carver and Marty Logan, who blew his motor up in round 1, would face off. Carver, virtually untouchable, a 30-year racing veteran. He would make easy work of Logan and notch his 5th consecutive unlimited victory, dating back to round number 1. The losers bracket final, Roe Yale and Matthew Caldwell, both with a loss to Carver in this round, and both vying to face him one more time. These two faced each other in these exact same circumstances in round 1, and just like round 1, Caldwell would be victorious, advancing to the unlimited final. The unlimited final, a rematch of the round 1 final that David Carver won. Carver in lane 1 going for his 7th consecutive win without a defeat. Caldwell looking for the upset in lane 2. It's a good start. Throttles wide open, nitrous kicking in, and David Carver of Bath, North Carolina makes it a clean sweep at Adel, Georgia, taking home the unlimited crown.
We came out here to have a good time with all our buddies, and when you win, that makes it even a little better. So we are quite happy right now.
Here's your scorecard for the Unlimiteds. Carver, the undisputed speed king, out on top. He went undefeated in both round 1 and round 2. Caldwell second overall, with Yale third. Broussard was 4th, and Leach finished up 5th. Coverage of the 2000 Reed Bingham Challenge from Adel, Georgia has been made possible by Blue Marble, premium 2-cycle lubricants, by Mercury Racing, where the race never stops, and by Budweiser, the king of beers. Welcome back as Blue Marble Oil presents coverage of race number 1 of the 2000 ODBA Series, the Reed Bingham Challenge from Adel, Georgia. Well, as this exciting weekend of racing draws to a close, it's time to take a look back at some of the exciting drag race action. So with that in mind, here's the APBA Competition Offshore Action Rewind, presented by Blue Marble Oil, the premium 2-cycle lubricant. The Action Rewind honors for the ODBA Reed Bingham Challenge would have to go to Alan Trantham of Waynesville, North Carolina. Trantham, racing in the very competitive super stock class, would record 5 consecutive victories in round number 1 before defeating Stuart DeBose in the final. Not to be outdone, Trantham in that bright yellow 383 Allison Hull Mercury-powered entry swept his way through round number 2, and again would be just one race short of a perfect weekend. And in that round 2 final, Alan Trantham would face Paul Freeman, the vice president of the ODBA, but Trantham would not be denied in his quest for a perfect weekend. He would sweep the round and be crowned the Reed Bigham Challenge Super Stock Champion. And that's your APBA Competition Offshore Action Rewind, presented by Blue Marble Oil, the premium 2-cycle lubricant. Even though some foul weather has moved in, that hasn't dampened the spirits of more than 70 racers who took to the water, all going head-to-head in what is called the famous liquid quarter mile. We saw several speed records fall here this weekend. All in all, some great competition. How about Marty Logan dropping that engine cowling right off his boat in the unlimited class? One of the more exciting aspects this weekend. Another exciting aspect will be our next race on the Outboard Drag Boat Association Tour. That'll come from Westlake, Louisiana. So until then, on behalf of our entire APBA Competition Offshore crew, I'm Ian Howard saying so long from Adel, Georgia. We'll see you next time on the water, right here on Speed Vision. For the latest on APBA competition, log on to www.speedvision.com.